Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery, where we learn to make a good mystery great. And today I want to talk about being like your detective when you're stuck in your story. First, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon for their continued support of this video series and my writing. And if you'd like to join and support, there's lots of special posts and videos just for patrons. That link is in the description below. Okay, let's talk about a surefire way to get back into your story, and that is be like your detective. So it's not unusual to stall when writing your mystery story. For most writers, that sag happens somewhere between the middle and maybe 3/4. There's this place where it's just not happening. All right. But I want you to know that not only do setbacks happen, they happen to writers, and they are a normal part of the writing process. So first of all, don't give up. It's not a time to it's not working, I give up, I don't know what I'm doing. It's setbacks happen. So take them as stride, think of them as a process, and today we're going to talk about a process to help you get back into your story when you're stuck. So take a deep breath, know you are normal, and think about how to get back into that writing flow. So, be like your detective. Whatever does that mean? Whenever you're in your story and it stalls, you can act like your detective and revisit the facts. For you, those are the facts of your story. So, just as your detective lists the facts like evidence and clues, there's always a scene in your mystery, usually at least 2, where the detective reviews everything that they know so far and they list the facts and revisit them. So you can revisit the facts of your mystery story. And just like your detective looks at those facts in new ways, you can do the same process with your story facts. You can think of new ways to present your story facts. So you can do things like ask what-if questions, examine a story element from a new perspective, in the same way that your detective looks at a clue and tries thinking of a different way to interpret that clue. All right. So first of all, you need the facts, right? Before you can do anything with them, you need those facts. So your detective may have a notebook or a big whiteboard. In the same way, you want to look at your facts. So the other day, Detective Adam Richardson had a short workshop on the mindset of detectives, and he had a list of attributes. So I thought I'd share those with you because they're a list of attributes to help you get in touch with your detective, who is the main character in your story. All right. So first of all, you're going to have detective character traits, and then you're going to brainstorm conflict. What causes conflict for that character? And then you want some overall ideas and themes for your story. You want to know where your detective works. That's not only where their physical location of their office is, but where they're going as the story takes place. You want to know your detective's cool gear if they are a law enforcement officer, their vehicle, what kind of crimes can occur in your story, You want to take a look at your B story, the story that follows along before your main mystery solving story. I want some backstory ideas. Um, you also want to know for your detective, what were some of their previous assignments and what was their pre-law enforcement life like? So that has to do with their backstory. You want to know any current relationships they have and also where they live. And just for example, I was having trouble kind of formulating the character for my current work in progress. And once I gave her a home, it was like I understood a lot about her personality. So these details really help you as a writer. I mean, that was an instance for me, but don't overlook how these details can help you formulate your story and your characters. You can also, because Adam Richardson was focused on your detective, you can also use the same characteristics for other characters in your story and for plot ideas for your story. So don't go back to your story yet. This is part of this process of being like your detective. All right. You have I Adam Richardson suggested 3x5 cards and making notes on all of those 3x5 cards for each one of those characteristics. Um, so what you want to do is spread those cards out on a big flat surface that might be a large table. I use the floor. Floor may not work if you have rambunctious pets or kids or share your space with other people, or even if you have a small living space. But you want some kind of large space where you can spread the cards out because um, this process is about grouping and regrouping those cards. So you can arrange the cards according to relationships. Um, and I suggest that as you're doing this process, you also take notes. What comes into your head when you look at the relationship, say, between where your detective works and what's going on in your Mr. Story? Um, then you take those cards, once again, shuffle them up, and then arrange them according to plot ideas. What information that you have in those cards can work to um, create an incident in your story plot, and then take more notes. So it's pretty much just physically shuffling cards. That's why I suggest that you use um, a pen and paper rather than writing all this stuff down on your computer, because you're physically working with the cards. So now that you've played with your cards, as it were, you can go back into your story Bible, which is probably on your computer, and add those notes that you took while you were looking at the cards and shuffling them around and looking at relationships and looking for new plot ideas. And add your pertinent notes to your story Bible. And also, if you have a plot outline, for instance, I use Plotter, you can add those new plot ideas to your plot outline. And especially if you've come up with twists, you want to figure out where they're going to go in your story and how they head your detective in a new direction. So essentially, this brainstorming process helps you kickstart new ideas when you're stuck. And it also helps you integrate those new ideas into the storyline that you already have. You're already working on your story, right? And you have a lot of it going. You just at this stalled, stuck place. So the next step is, of course, to start working on those new ideas. So with your stack of new ideas on hand, you can move your story forward with scenes and ideas from this brainstorming session. You may have a new way for your opponent to give your detective new trouble, or you may have an idea for a new opponent. Or you may discover that the lovey-dovey love interest isn't as loving as you thought. These are the ideas that can come up as you're just kind of looking at these cards and shuffling them around and looking at how relationships come up in your story. Or you may have a suspect who hides an important piece of information, and now your detective is stymied, and somehow you, the author, have to come up with a way for your detective to discover this hidden piece of information. All right. The whole idea of this process is to kickstart your story with new ideas to get you writing again. That's what you want to be doing. You want to be writing your story. And so whatever method you use for kickstarting the concept is to brainstorm new ways to work with your story. So this process takes maybe start to finish 30 minutes to an hour, just depending on how many notes you take and how many new ideas pop into your head from just kind of shuffling around all the facts of your story. And now that you have new ideas, you may want to write that scene of your detective reviewing their list of facts. So if you haven't written that scene, this is a great time to do that. Give your detective the facts and have them review it in a scene. Okay, I hope that helps. It's getting stuck somewhere along in your story writing process is definitely part of the process. So just look at it at that. It is part of the process. And this is one way that you can help kickstart your brain into action with new ideas about your story. Also, I wanted to let you know, speaking of Detective Adam Richardson, that he has a new session of his absolutely fabulous Writers Detective School starting on August 1st. And what happens in this is that you help solve a murder case. You become a detective, and you work with your partner, who in this case happens to be Adam, to work through the crime scene, to work through the clues, to interview suspects, to write warrants. It's a very active course, and it really gives you a sense of what being a detective is like, and the process that they have to go through, the people they have to connect with, the people they have to direct in order to work the case. So you're going to be working a case. So if a detective is a main character in your story, I highly, highly recommend this course. And even if your detective isn't the main character but is a character in your mystery story, it's going to give you a deeper understanding of what detectives are like and how they work. It's a very special mindset, and I'll help you understand that. So anyway, starts August 1st. There's a link in the description below so you can find out more about the course, and you will discover all sorts of things you don't know about being a detective. Okay, I hope that helps. If you have any questions, want to ask me about 3x5 cards, another way you can do it, if 3x5 cards aren't your thing, you can just take a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, for each idea that you have for your stack. It's going to take more space to spread it around, but that's another way you can do it. All right, I hope that helps. and keep writing, and I will see you next week.